Have you ever felt surrounded by people, yet strangely untouched by any of it? Have you noticed how conversation can stay active while something inside remains unspoken? Do you sense moments where connection feels close, but not quite accessible? Have you observed how being needed doesn't always feel the same as being known? Do you ever wonder when silence became easier than explaining what's actually going on? And have you felt a loneliness that doesn't come from isolation, but from carrying things alone? Many men don't recognize this as loneliness at first. It doesn't announce itself through absence, but through containment. Life continues, work, responsibility, interaction, but something remains withheld, not because there is nothing to say, but because words feel insufficient, or unnecessary, or simply out of place. There is a kind of loneliness that does not announce itself. It does not feel like isolation, and it does not always come with sadness. Life may be full, work to do, people around, responsibilities moving forward, yet something remains unspoken inside. Many men sense it during quiet moments, not when they are distracted. A pause between tasks, an evening that ends without relief, a thought that appears and is quickly set aside. This loneliness is not about being unseen by others. Often it exists even when a man is respected, relied upon, and needed. It has less to do with connection and more to do with containment, a feeling that much of what is carried has nowhere to settle, not because no one would listen, but because the weight itself feels difficult to translate. The loneliness many men never mention is not the absence of people, it is the absence of resonance. Over time, a man learns to function through structure, roles, competence, contribution. These bring stability and often purpose, but they also encourage compression. Thoughts are streamlined, emotions are simplified, unresolved questions are postponed until later, a time that rarely arrives. What forms is a quiet inner gap, not emptiness but density, a collection of unfinished reflections, restrained impulses, and unarticulated pressure. Because expression feels imprecise, many men choose containment instead. They carry rather than clarify. This is often mistaken for strength, and for a while it works. Containment allows progress. It keeps life orderly, but over time the inner world becomes crowded, not chaotic, just heavy. The loneliness appears here, not as longing for attention, but as a sense that one's inner life is never fully present anywhere. Thoughts are held back even in conversation. Reactions are measured before they are felt. There is competence without ease. This experience is rarely spoken about because it does not resemble distress. There is no crisis, no visible fracture, just a gradual sense that something internal is always slightly deferred. Many men try to resolve this by adding more effort, more discipline, more output. But this loneliness is not caused by a lack of action. It is caused by a lack of integration. When inner complexity is never given form, it does not disappear, it accumulates. And what accumulates begins to separate a man from himself. He remains functional, even successful, but increasingly distant from his own internal coherence. This distance is subtle. It shows up as restlessness without desire, focus without satisfaction, direction without grounding. Life continues forward, yet something essential feels uninhabited. This quiet loneliness has implications for identity, not identity as a label, but as an internal sense of solidity. When much of one's inner experience remains unexpressed, not outwardly, but inwardly, it becomes difficult to feel fully anchored. Decisions are made efficiently, yet without resonance. Discipline is maintained, but it feels brittle. There is order, but not always ease. Self-mastery is often imagined as control, but control without integration creates distance. A man may manage himself well while remaining unfamiliar to himself. The loneliness, then, is not asking to be removed. It is signaling something unfinished, not weakness, but incompleteness. Many men sense this during moments of stillness, when distraction falls away and the internal noise becomes noticeable. It is not dramatic, just persistent. The challenge is that this experience does not call for expression in the conventional sense. It does not require confession or performance. It requires recognition. Recognition that an inner life exists beyond function, that not everything carried must be immediately useful. That clarity is not always about reduction, but about allowing internal complexity to settle into coherence. When this begins to happen, the loneliness changes quality. It no longer feels like absence. It feels like space being reclaimed. A man becomes less driven by pressure to prove solidity, because solidity is felt internally. Silence becomes less heavy. Direction feels steadier, not because answers are found, but because fragmentation decreases. This is not resolution. It is alignment. The loneliness many men never mention is not a flaw to be corrected. It is a signal that something inside has been carried for too long without integration. It does not demand urgency. It does not ask for display. It asks for presence. When a man allows his inner life to become more coherent, less compressed, less deferred, something quiet shifts. The need to escape himself softens. The pressure to constantly hold steadiness eases. What remains is not comfort, but groundedness, a sense of being internally inhabited. And from that place, loneliness loses its sharpness, not because life becomes lighter, but because it becomes whole enough to rest within. The silence remains, but it no longer feels empty.